The Los Angeles Angels have once again dipped their toe into the free agent market and have struck gold, bringing in Kenley Jansen on a 1-year, $10 million deal. The Twins have finally added another piece to their lineup. The Los Angeles Dodgers bring back Clayton Kershaw, and it looks like Alex Bregman decision is one day closer once again. Let us know what you guys think, where he will sign, and let's get into it. And welcome into the MLB Hot Stove Daily here at the Upside Sports Network. My name is Michael. Appreciate you guys joining us early on a Tuesday evening, starting a little bit earlier today, as thankfully everything went to plan with work. So I got to be able to join you guys at a time I thought was a little bit more reasonable. So hopefully we'll be able to reach a little bit wider audience a little bit earlier of a start time. But appreciate you guys joining us. Hit that like and subscribe if you are new here. Let us know where you're watching from. Very friendly chat as always. So feel free to join in. Send us a comment. Tell us what things you're looking forward to the MLB season. What spring training things are you keeping an eye on? And who do you have ultimately making it to the postseason and winning the World Series? Also, be sure to follow us on X at UpsideSN and on Facebook at Upside Sports Network as well. But let's get to the first headline. That's going to be Kenley Jansen goes to the Los Angeles Angels, not the Dodgers. So as far as the Angels go, I think this deal is a little bit more expensive than some of their other deals, and what I generally would say is a good move for them. However, it's a 1-year deal. How often do we look at a 1-year deal and say, not such a good move? It never happens. I mean, sure, there are some deals that might look better than others, but in general, a 1-year deal can almost never be a bad one because of the short-term nature of it. Now, what are the Angels getting? They're getting somebody who can lock down the 9th inning for them if things go well for Kenley Jansen. Also, if things are going well for him, I would expect him to be traded at some point around the trade deadline. And with as high as relief pitching prices are this offseason, he might catch a pretty penny in the trade deadline market. So keep your eyes on that market as well. But he isn't the only guy that signed today. We saw Clayton Kershaw agree to terms with the Los Angeles Dodgers. Remember, he's not expected to pitch until around the All-Star break. Maybe it'll be a little bit thereafter. We do not know the financial terms there. Other major league deals that got agreed to. Michael Taylor once had a great year with the Minnesota Twins, parlayed that deal into a 1-year deal with the Pirates. Didn't exactly follow it up with a great year, and has since signed with the Chicago White Sox on a 1-year, essentially around a $2 million deal for Michael Taylor. So hopefully he gets some of that offensive prowess back. Then we get a bevy of minor league deals and non-roster invitees into spring training. We'll start with the biggest one of those, with the Minnesota Twins bringing in the former Mariner, Ty France. Now, France has certainly seen his better days. He does nothing for them defensively. The Twins already have 2 better options offensively at first base. I'm curious to see why they brought him in there. Understandably, there's a lot of first base guys that maybe you just want to see if somebody catches fire in the spring, but the thought process there among Twins fans is that they were going to go with more of a defensive-minded first baseman with 2 more offensively slanted first basemen already at the position. They chose to go with one of the worst graded-out defenders at first base that we've seen in about 3 or 4 years now. He is in that category of some of the worst defenders at first base we've seen, and it's not getting any better. His stats are continually getting worse, and I don't think it's going to be solved by, hey, maybe he's learned his lesson, maybe he's figured out something different to do with his game, maybe his bat's going to be too big to be able to leave in the minor leagues, maybe he's just going to outslug his way and just deal with the defense. I don't think any of those are legitimate options here for Ty France, but depth is pretty much, I think, the only reason why they're bringing this guy in. I don't think he breaks through with the big league club unless they make other moves off of that roster. Namely, Willie Castro has been one name that's been bandied about. Chris Paddock on the pitching side. Maybe a Byron Buxton trade could be coming. But the Twins are certainly restricted as far as how much money they have to spend. And so they're able at least to get one guy in there with some major league experience that could at least push the 2 guys to make the most of that first base spot. We saw the Yankees add another left-handed pitcher anyway. They DFA'd Owen White once again. I think this is the 3rd or 4th time he has been designated for assignment so far this offseason. Hopefully the merry-go-round for him will end at some point soon. Other news, the Reds added relief pitcher Scott Barlow 1 year, $2.5 million. And once again, the Reds have added to that bullpen. I like what they've done so far, rebuilding the late innings of that bullpen, kind of reimagining how they want to go about it. I still think they need to add one more starting pitching, but those are the moves we've kind of seen today. I'm sure I'm missing one or two. Just checking my notes. Oh, the Astros did add another guy on a minor league deal. You guys might have remember him from his time with the New York Mets, is Luis Guillorme. I think he was with the Angels at one point as well, but he's going to give them some depth as far as the corner infield spots, maybe a little bit over there at second base if Altuve's defensive numbers continue to drop. There is some there is some versatility because he's kind of a utility infielder for them. So Astros, to me, still need to add an outfielder to that mix. Keep an eye on Alex Verdugo, among others. But as a non-roster invitee, minor league deal kind of a contract here, a good get here for Houston is kind of insurance in case things don't go perfectly for you in the spring. Also tells me that they are firmly out on Nolan Arenado as well. Welcome in Holly, Mark, Brad, Rafe, Sean. Let's go ahead and do that update on Bregman. We'll go ahead and do that now for you, Sean. As far as Bregman goes, we've been talking, pretty much ad nauseum since the calendar turned to 2025 that, hey, when is Alex Bregman going to sign? Hey, when is Roki Sasaki going to sign? Hey, when's Pete Alonso going to sign? Well, the last one left is Alex Bregman. And we got the report yesterday from a couple of different sources, but most notably Buster Posey, that it was really down to three favorites: the Cubs, the Tigers, and the Red Sox. I don't necessarily buy the Red Sox as a legitimate option here. Only has some certain ties to the Red Sox organization, and I'm sure he's hearing rumblings that they're, of course, still talking about it, with him still being out there on the market. Red Sox have taken opportunities in the past when a player lingers on the free agent market. Maybe they'll up their offer by one more year at a lower AAV. Maybe that's something the Red Sox could do, but I'd say they're probably the least likely of the three teams that were mentioned. Tigers, I think, would be a great option for them if they had more years on the table. I'm just not sure they're ever going to raise their offer from whatever number of years they ultimately might have on the table. The Cubs, to me, have been the favorite ever since they really entered this race here and identified him as the difference maker for them in this lineup. To me, they've kind of treaded water this offseason. They, lost two big cogs out of the offense, Paredes and Bellinger. They only bring in one guy back with Kyle Tucker. Of course, they have a much higher ceiling there with Kyle Tucker, but where's the depth in that lineup? Hey, I'm just going to pitch around Kyle Tucker. Who else is going to beat me in this lineup? Horner's going to be out about a month. It sounds like they might start with a couple other guys in the minor leagues just to kind of get their feet wet and get ready for the major leagues. Who knows? Maybe they might set the world on fire in spring training and be forced to call them up, on opening day. But right now, the Cubs, for me, are not a favorite in the NL Central. And with all the pressure that's coming from the ownership down to that front office on a clear mandate to win in 2025, I wonder how big of a mandate there is from ownership to the front office to be able to get this contract done with Alex Bregman. Now, we've heard several different reports as far as the types of contracts the Cubs are offering. Best one I've heard so far is 6 years with an opt-out after the first year. I wouldn't be surprised if they up that offer just a little bit more now that we're getting closer to spring training and just see if they can get their team pretty much set before opening day or before they open camp and just let them get comfortable. How often have we seen players go into spring training, not sign with sign with a team, especially a big marquee free agent, and ultimately struggle for the first month or two? If they're all in to try to win in 2025, a slow start is not something you can really accommodate here. And with the pressure coming from ownership to win in 2025, that front office, I'm sure, is feeling the heat. I guarantee you Craig Counsell is going to have a better year than he did last year. Use his wizardry on that bullpen like he did in Milwaukee for all those years and just figure it out in those late innings. He's got a great option now as far as a closer there. But my question is this team good enough offensively, or do they still need to add one more piece besides Alex Bregman? I think Bregman would be a great piece for that lineup, but even bringing him in, I think they'd be a favorite in the division, but I don't think they're making any noise in the postseason. So while Bregman is a big piece out there, I think it'd still be an incomplete for what other work they still have to do. What's up, man? Jansen sold his soul. I don't know about that. I know a lot of Dodgers fans probably don't like him going to the crosstown rival. I say crosstown. It's pretty good distance anyway between the two stadiums. But in either event, Jansen is now a member of the Angels. The only reason I think this makes sense for the Angels and why I'm not ripping them a new one for spending big on a free agent, because it's a one-year deal and it's a tradable contract here. That's the main thing. My theory about building a bullpen when you're a struggling team and you're going through a rebuild process is sign a whole bunch of guys, to those $2-3 million deals. Say you want to spend $30-35 million on your bullpen for a year. Okay, take that $30 to $35 million and split it up between a bunch of different veterans that you can easily flip if they're having a good year, or easily cut or DFA if they're not. That way you're not beholden to any one of those guys, that you can maximize the return on any one of those guys if they're having a great year, that you can turn around and trade them for some assets going forward. That's what I would be doing here. But again, it just depends on how you want to build it out. Say you have that 30 to 35 million to spend on a bullpen, you spend 10 on it on Kenley Jansen, that still leaves you 20 million to split up between what, 7, 8 other relief pitchers to kind of fill out the rest of that bullpen. I think the Angels did the right move here by getting the biggest acquisition on the free agent market left as far as relief pitching here, because again, the prices for relief pitching this offseason have been out of this world great as far as the players are concerned. And so I think the Angels did the right move here by getting a 1-year deal, and they can swallow a little bit of that contract if they find a taker for him at the trade deadline, and the team might be worried about their finances or whatever they want to do there. But a good move here, I think, for the Angels. Like I said, I like seeing smart baseball decisions being made by other front offices. And I've given my fair share of grief to the Angels front office and their way they handled Shohei Ohtani. Even this offseason, I don't like the deal for Kikuchi. I don't like how they're trying to push the pedal down for Pete Alonso, how they still are pushing it down for a, quote, big splash type of a free agent, maybe even Alex Bregman. Anthony Santander is probably the biggest name that they were most close to bringing in. Ultimately, they did not. Congratulations that they avoided that pitfall. But got to give them their props here. I like the acquisition here of Kenley Jansen. Even if it doesn't work out, it's a $10 million investment only on a 1-year deal. Then you have those other veterans that you can cycle in there and see if they have a great year in that bullpen as well. Again, it's about talent acquisition for the Angels. That's the name of the game. And you have to get a free agent in order to be able to trade him at some point. So I would still expect them to try to add a couple more veteran pieces to that bullpen and just kind of solidify that back into that bullpen so they can trade some of those guys at the deadline. I do not expect the Angels to be very competitive, though. Alrighty, let's try to catch up on a couple of these comments. Welcome back, Sarah. Been a minute since I've seen you. Appreciate you joining us once again. Overhearing about the Arenado trade, my goodness, Dodgers doing Dodgers things. I would agree there. I mean, the 3 teams that have been reached out from the St. Louis Cardinals, according to the St. Louis Post, or St. Louis Dispatch anyway, that the Dodgers, Yankees, and Red Sox were the 3 teams that were reached out to by the St. Louis Cardinals. And why is that? Well, they're trying to offload Nolan Arenado before they even get to spring training. So this thing is going to have to happen this week. I would expect this deal to get done. Arenado's already made it clear he would love to be a member of the Dodgers since the end of the regular season. Honestly, I think he already dropped some hints before the end of the year, but we'll kind of steer away from those discussions. As far as the Yankees, he said around the new year that he would be very happy going there. And as far as the Red Sox, the last week or so, that's been the heavily rumored team for him. I wonder if that's the most likely one because that's the most recent rumors. But I find it very interesting. It was the Cardinals that reached out to all 3 teams. That tells me that, one, they are very motivated to get this thing done. It's not driven by the other team. So this kind of lends itself to being something that could be done a lot quicker than if it was the other way around. Now, as far as Arenado, still a good player, a declining player, but still a productive one. Can be a leader, and maybe you get another good year or 2, maybe 3 out of that bat. But is he the Nolan Arenado that could carry you to a World Series championship, say 10 years ago? No. Nolan Arenado is still a good player, but he's not a great player anymore. Kind of brings that steady Eddie at third base, if you will. And if you don't want to play him at third, say you already have a lockdown third baseman over there, so be it. Play him at DH, play him at first base, maybe fill him in the infield at third base whenever your guy needs a day off. But his bat would be much better for the Dodgers, give them some insurance on Freddie Freeman. We discussed the length of, the litany of reasons why it would make sense for the Dodgers. Yankees, it's more about them being able to get the Cardinals to bite down on enough of that salary, or offloading DJ LeMahieu, what doesn't look like it's going to happen, or Marcus Stroman. For the Red Sox, it's about getting that number down enough to where they're comfortable bringing him in. The short-term deal, I don't think they have any issues with, because that's what they were really looking for to get done with Alex Bregman if they were to go that direction. But it sounds like they're kind of cooling a little bit on Alex Bregman as far as I'm concerned. Too many reports out there as far as their lukewarm interest at best for me to believe that they're a, quote, favorite according to Buster Olney. When does Bregman sign? I would say sometime in the next week or so. I'd say about the 18th is about the latest I would expect that deal to get done. Let's see here. D-Rod, welcome in. What's up? Nothing too much. Just had a good day at work anyway. Got out early for once. Mark, I know will cost a lot, but heard rumors Texas looking at the possibility of trading for Suarez. Wonder what it would cost if it's not Rocker or Teodo or Langford or Walcott would seriously consider it. It ain't going to cost him anywhere near those pieces there, Mr. Mark. We'll go ahead and do one of those trades here in just a moment. Welcome in, JG. Appreciate you joining us. Astros, they did sign Luis Guillorme for nice depth there. I would agree there. Sean, when is Bregman signing again within the next week? Gordon, would Leote, Josh Smith, and a minor league arm get you Helsley? That would be overpaying for Ryan Helsley. You don't need to give up that much, Gordon. As far as Josh Smith goes, that would be more value than what Helsley brings to the table already. You don't need to include Leote, and you don't need to include another arm as well. I think they're going to go more of the minor league guys if they go the Helsley route, but I would not be surprised if the Rangers added somebody via free agency, a Finnegan, a Kendall Graveman type, or via trade, Helsley, Duran, Suarez, Adam, other closers that are on the market as well. Let's see here. D-Rod, Tucker probably unhappy he's playing on that team. He's in a contract year. To a certain extent, I think he kind of made his case very well known to the Astros brass that he was not going to be signing an extension. They had zero interest in signing before he hit his free agency window, and so they made the decision they don't want to deal with it, that they'd just they'd rather go ahead and invest his value anyway into getting some long-term assets for the organization. Correct move for the Astros. This does open their window up a little bit more going forward. Do they miss the top-end talent? No question. But I'd say they're a better team in 26, 27, 28, and 29 with the loss of Kyle Tucker, who I thought was going to leave in free agency anyway, because you see the price on Alex Bregman and they're not willing to budge on it. Kyle Tucker would be very much in that same boat. They wouldn't be going above their number either, and he would leave in free agency for a bag of potato chips, also known as a compensation pick. But as far as Tucker, I don't think he's necessarily unhappy about playing in Chicago. I think he just wants to be in a hitter's park and put up big numbers as he approaches free agency. And he was used to playing in the postseason, so Chicago's had some difficulty getting in there. He's going to have to do a Herculean effort to get him over that hump with the offensive issues I think the Cubs currently have. But maybe they add Bregman. Maybe they add somebody at the trade deadline. Maybe there's a trade for Dylan Cease. All of things can happen, but all of these maybes are not certainties, and that's the issue I still have with the Cubs, why I'm still giving them an incomplete for their work this offseason. Sean, if the Cubs don't end up with Bregman, could they sign Justin Turner? That was the scuttlebutt yesterday anyway. That was the backup option that the media has identified as the option that they might turn to. I think he'd be a great option for that lineup, even if they did bring in Alex Bregman, because I think he'd be a great fill-in option, kind of a platoon over there at first base. You can give him a little bit of infield time all over the diamond here and there, depending on how good his glove work is as you go into spring training. He does have experience anyway, pretty much all over the diamond, but I'd say he's primarily a DH first base guy at the moment, maybe a little bit of third base from time to time. But I would say that the Cubs, if they don't get Bregman, need to add another bat in free agency, period. If they do add Bregman, I still think they need to add another bat, just not with maybe the same impact. They just need somebody with some professionalism in that box for them. I don't really think they're a better offensive club. I think their bullpen is better. Their pitching staff is to me. That's why I still think there could be an upgrade coming there. Mike, who is Bregman signing with? My belief is that he's going to go to the Cubs. With the 5 teams we've heard pretty much over the last month, Houston, Chicago, Detroit, Boston, and Toronto. Sounds like, according to Buster Olney, the 3 favorites there are Chicago, Detroit, and Boston. For me, I still pick the Chicago Cubs to be able to get this one across the finish line. Let's go ahead and head over to X and just see if anything is happening at the moment before we go ahead and dip our toe into some of the trade talk this evening. Looks like a bunch of nothing at the moment. But the trade that you mentioned there was with the St. Louis Cardinals and the Texas Rangers. Let's go ahead and pull them up real quick. Texas is still looking for a closer. That's the one hole besides another innings eater as far as a starting pitcher in that rotation. But let's say the Rangers. You said you were looking at Helsley was the first piece. Let's go ahead and do that one. Helsley's around a 13, just so you can kind of get an idea of what his value is. You go over to the Rangers. The first one I'm going to look at is Josh Smith. Smith's value right now is around 14.1. That's why I said it's a little bit of an overpay, Gordon, to do Smith, Leote, and a minor league arm. I think Smith would get the deal done instantly because, remember, it's only 1 year of Helsley versus 4 years of control here for Josh Smith. I don't necessarily think they want to go with a bat at this point. I think they'd rather go some starting pitching prospects than Josh Smith anyway, which is why the rumors that you hear out there, MLB Network, or MLB.com anyway, Jim Bowden had a great article about a month and a half ago around the Christmas break anyway, about where a guy like Helsley could go. And the Texas trade that he came up with was Mitch Bratt and another minor league pitcher there as well. So that's kind of the trade value that I see for Ryan Helsley, not Josh Smith. They want to keep their platoon with Berger and Smith at first base at least this year and see how it goes into 25-26. What do you think about the Yankees picking up Matzik? A good depth arm. All these minor league contracts for me are all good lottery tickets. Every single one of them. Even the Ty France one for the Twins, even though I think he's a declining player, doesn't offer much. It's literally a lottery ticket. If he comes into spring training and knocks the cover off the ball, by all means, sign him to a big league deal, start him on opening day. Really hope his production continues into the regular season. But time and time again, we see a lot of those guys ultimately not work out. So while I think they're a great lottery ticket, and if you get production out of them, that's a bonus. I'm not counting on anything from those guys. But depth, that's kind of what I see for Matzik here if they keep him through spring training and into the regular season on the minor league side of things. If he starts with the major league club, that means he had a great spring or there's a lot of injury issues. So we'll have to see what happens with the Yankees. But I'd say as far as Matzik goes and any of these other minor league deals that you're seeing signed, like Jake Diekman for the Atlanta Braves, another good depth signing for them, are just real lottery tickets at this point. There's no real value you can assign to them other than, hey, they've got great experience. Maybe they can correct their pitching or whatever and get back on the right track. And then we really have something there as well. Let's go ahead and do this Helsley trade. Like I said, Bratt was one of the names that he had come up with. Trying to see where his value is at nowadays. I'm just going to search his name. They got him all the way down to 1.4, so they've dropped his value significantly. That was one of the names I heard out there. The headliner of the deal, I can't remember who his other name was. Let me go back over to the Rangers side of things. If you're going to go Bratt, you probably have to include Dreiling as the frontline piece, and then maybe another depth starting pitcher type of option. You're not going to trade Teodo. Let's go to page 2. Tiger, that could be the guy. Still a little low, though. Let's take out Bratt. Let's take out all these options. Go back over to our first page and just kind of build up a little trade here. You could go Duran. No. You'd probably go Osuna. Osuna gets you 6. Tiger maybe, and then maybe trade Foscue in this deal as well to clear off another roster spot. Corniel, that was the other one. I'm trying to remember who it was. Corniel had a chance to be claimed as a Rule 5 draft pick and was not. He's got some decent talent, but Corniel and Bratt were the original offer there. I could see this deal with Bratt being included, being a decently close deal, but with the values that this site has, it doesn't look like a fair trade to me. So they'd have to come up with something a little bit different or go with a bigger player and expand this trade a little bit to include more than just Ryan Helsley. Maybe the Cardinals would have to kick in some cash so the Rangers wouldn't have to pay down that deal as well. Jake Cousins is already hurt. Let's see here. D-Rod, smart move by the Astros to trade Tucker. Tucker can be traded by the deadline if all things fail for the Cubs. Couldn't agree more. And if things do work out, at least you can get a compensation pick if he does leave in free agency. But that would mean that if you held on to him at the trade deadline, the hope would be that you at least won the division, that maybe you got it further into the playoffs, maybe won a round or two, and push for a World Series. That would be the ideal situation here for the Cubs. More realistic is that they are going to be right on the edge of making a wild card spot. They might be left out of the playoff picture, and at the trade deadline, they might have a difficult decision as to whether to buy or sell because of the pending free agency of Kyle Tucker. Do they want to go via trade and see if they can get more assets than what a compensation pick would be, or would they rather hold on to him and try to win a wild card spot with him on their roster? Graham, though, there's one thing: if Matzik does the business, TV companies will be having to blank their screens. Alrighty. Let's see. I just want to head over to X one more time, see if anything is happening right now. It's been kind of a busy news day as far as transactions, but nothing too big aside from Kenley Jansen and Clayton Kershaw. Nothing happening at the moment. Alrighty, let's see here. Verlis, as a Cardinals fan, I would want Foscue in a deal for Helsley for sure. I love Foscue. I think he's a very professional hitter. The one thing he needs is just time. Just give him time at second base. Just leave him alone, let him hit, and eventually I think his power will really continue to blossom like it was early in his career with Texas before he kind of lost his playing time as they tried to monkey with his defensive versatility. I think his best position, and should have stayed his best position, was at second base, and they just messed around with him too much there as well. Let's see here. Not unfortunately, no, Graham, I do not. Let's see here. I want to get into some trades here. We touched on a few of them the other night, but I wanted to kind of have some more fun as we're gearing up for spring training. We'll be starting our spring training series on Thursday night, I believe, where we'll start our 30 clubs in 30 days. So be prepared for that one. We'll probably start with the 2 early clubs. My hope is that we'll have a Bregman signing already by that point, and then we'll have our incomplete change from the Chicago Cubs. And then the Dodgers will be one of the first teams we do as well, as they're going to start their season a little bit early as well. When should we expect Bregman signing news? Same thing. I'm expecting before the 18th. You're getting fed up with a Bregman. I think everybody is. That's a rough nickname as far as I'm concerned. So Duran or Helsley or Suarez would be the main targets for Texas. All they need is a closer, and I think they're the best team in the AL if healthy. I'm losing sleep because of it. I hear you, Rod. I have been going on very late because of it. I've been waiting for that deal to happen. Thought I'd start a little earlier today, kind of reverse the jinx here. Maybe we'll get a deal done late tonight, and then I'll do another live for you guys. But let's go ahead and do some of those trades like you mentioned there, Mark. Let's look at the Rangers. Say they don't go the free agency route with Graveman or Finnegan. Say they go to the Padres, and we'll do Suarez because that was the first name you mentioned earlier. As the screen jumps on me there. Now the reason why this would be interesting to the Padres is because they're trying to offload some salary here. Suarez deal, I think he's got around 18-ish, 12-ish value, somewhere in there. What was it? Or was it 6? I can't remember. Was it his contract I'm thinking of? Let me do it this way. -4. Okay, it was a salary. Okay. He's got $26 million left, so you're probably going to have to get the Padres to pay down on that, and they're not really willing to do something like that. So the only way Texas would do this, if you're taking on the money of Suarez, who's making, what, $6 million this year? Texas doesn't have a whole lot of room to spend. So we might have to expand this into a 3-team deal for it to make sense for the Rangers. They were playing with the idea of moving John Gray to the bullpen. I think the only way they would do that is if they added a starting pitcher. Now, I know you guys are all thinking, uh-oh, is he going to include Michael King or Dylan Cease? No, I ain't going that direction. The third team, for me, there's 2 teams I'm contemplating between Brewers and Diamondbacks. Let's start with the Brewers because I know they're a fit for John Gray. So you send out John Gray, that saves you the money. He goes to the Brewers. You send Ezekiel Duran to the Padres. If you're sending Duran, the one piece I think the Rangers would love to have, if they could get their hands on him, would be Luis Arraez anyway. Let's do... What is his value? Like 7? I'm trying to remember what his value is. His value is all the way down at 4.8. Wow. They've dropped his value down recently. Pistons winning 56-22. Yikes. That is a lot. Let's see here. Sean, when should we expect the Bregman news? That's kind of what I was just talking about there, Sean. I'm expecting it by the 18th. Suarez is the one they now look like they're thinking of moving. I guess Cease isn't getting them back what they want. they have a really high asking price for Dylan Cease, and there's no reason to rush that trade right now for them. So unless somebody's willing to give them something crazy like they originally asked for, Mayo, Basayo, etc., from the Baltimore Orioles, they're not going to trade him right now. They want to generate a market for him, and even if they have to go into the season with Cease as a starter for the Padres, they're comfortable with that. They can probably go into May or June, maybe even all the way to the trade deadline with Dylan Cease before they try to worry about bringing back a piece at that point. But I think the Rise probably has his best value right now on the market, so that's probably why I'd try to get him off the books, and it saves them the money right now. Let's see here. Trying to finish off this trade here. So you're sending out Duran. Luis Arraez is coming in. You're sending out John Gray. Your value's fairly decent if you're Texas. The Brewers would have to give something up of around $4 million value. Maybe a little more. I would love a player like Jesus Mate, but his value went through the roof. People realized how good he is. You're not getting him at this point. They're not willing to trade one of their starters. They need their starters. So as far as a major league piece, maybe they give you a reliever with some upside here. Uribe, Gasser, the former Padres prospect. Uribe would probably be the one that they could possibly send to the Padres to help out that bullpen. Not a bad option there. Payamps makes a lot of sense, though. A cheap, low-cost option. He's been in San Diego already. But it's such a big piece for that bullpen. Would they trade him this close to the start of the season? I don't think so. Maybe Uribe. Alright, so the Padres, they're getting all kinds of value there. Brewers are overpaying, so the Padres need to give up a little bit more in talent here. Alright, so let's go to the Padres. Say the Rangers want to add, where's his name? Adam. I thought he was around 3. He's around 4 now. So they've upped his value. Okay. So the Rangers get 2 relief pitchers, a closer, and another 8th inning setup guy, and Luis Arraez. You're still getting positive value here because of the pieces you're giving up. Padres would still have to give up just a little bit more. So if you sent take out Uribe in this deal. You're saving yourself quite a bit of money already by this trade. If the Padres wanted to cut some salary here, they could include about, I'll call it $8 million going to the Rangers to cover a little bit of the salary. Now their value is fairly even. Already. So you add the cash in. Now the Rangers are in the hole. The Brewers are in the hole. This is starting to make more sense. Okay. So you go over to the Rangers, you give up, or let's do the Brewers first. You give up around $4 million as far as value. That was around Payamps. You could go with Gasser, Peguero. Payamps makes some sense. I think you still go Uribe to the Padres. Now the Rangers have to give up a little bit more value. I think Foscue would be the one I'd probably let go of first. So his value I think is around 2.5. You send him to the Padres or Brewers? Either one. I think you probably send him to the Padres. Put Duran in the outfield. Put Foscue over there in the mix at second base. So you send Foscue there. You could even send Leote in this deal if you wanted to. In fact, let's do that instead because I think they could use another outfielder, even with the addition of Hayward that they did bring in. So you send in Tavares out there. Gives them another center field option. And then the Brewers just need to add to their end of the deal just a little bit. So you trade away a couple of low-end guys on your roster. Say around one. A bench bat. A low-cost pitcher, Aaron Ashby. Possibly. Grant Anderson. Is that the Grant Anderson from the Rangers? Interesting. Maybe you send him back to the Padres as well to give them another relief arm. Gives them 2 relief arms to go in place of Suarez and Adam. I think they're overpaying though. Let me take him out of the trade and just look at it again. They're sending out 6, so they need more. I'm looking at it the wrong direction. My bad. So you send around 1 out. Let's say you send out Rojas to the Brewers. They like their young shortstops there. And then the Rangers send out 1 more piece around that $1 million mark. Surplus value, go to page 2. Robert possibly, but he didn't have any real value. Mitch Bratt's had his name out there for a while now. That's pretty close. Let's validate, post, and take a look. Let's see here. Try to catch up on the few comments before we go into this trade and kind of break it down. Could it happen for the 18th? I would say so. I guess we are talking about Preller. He's a dealer. He is. 37 Bregman questions a day would make me crash out. So you're better than me. I hear you, my friend. But Robertson is the big guy that's still out there. Robertson back to the Rangers. I'd love to have it happen. He was a great pitcher for the Rangers last year, but I think they're looking for more of a closer than Robertson. I think he could do it, but I don't think he would be their preference. I'll put it that way. You heard the Jays might sign J.D. Martinez. I did hear his name bandied about there as well. I heard his name with the Giants. I heard his name with the Marlins. I heard his name with the Twins, but I don't think that's a realistic one. And then, what was the other one I heard? Was it the Mariners? I think it was the Mariners. Could Bregman sign this week? Yes, Sean. D-Rod, even though Preller hasn't made any moves, Padres still have a good team. They do. The question for them is they have a mandate to kind of at least keep the same payroll that they had last year. And because of just internal raises, that's not going to happen unless they move off of a couple of contracts. So do not be surprised if the Padres trade one of their guys that's got 1 year left on their deal in order to give themselves some wiggle room financially. I'm really surprised that D-Rob is still on the board. Same here. He was great last year for the Rangers. I think he's a very good bullpen option. I think with Kenley Jansen coming off the board, he is probably one of the last 2 or 3 arms that I'd say has a real impact at the back end of a bullpen that's left on the market. And I think he's just waiting to see if the Mets step up their price, if the Yankees step up theirs, if the Rangers circle back to him, if the Tigers kind of come back to him as well. Cubs are still looking to add to their bullpen. Braves are as well. I heard the Phillies have been mentioned as a fit, as well as the Jays. He has a lot of interest from around the league. I agree, D-Rod. He might sit tight as such until he can see until he sees where they sit near the deadline. I would say that they're, as far as D-Rod goes, David Robertson anyway. I think he'd be a good option in the bullpen to sign before we get to spring training. I don't expect him to wait until halfway through the year before he agrees to go anywhere there. Could see the Angels adding him to Jansen. That would be a good one, I would say, as well. Another, high quality, relief guy. Would I say it's the preference for me? No. I'd rather go a little bit cheaper there, just because if Robertson has a bad year, well, then you've sunk another $8 million out of two spots. You've sunk $18 million or so into your back end of the bullpen. If neither one of those guys is tradable, what asset are you trading at the deadline? Remember, it's about talent acquisition more than just trying to prove that your bullpen can hold down a game in 2025. Two-headed monster closer for Texas, Martin and Robertson. I'd say both guys are okay options as far as a closer, but they're great options as an eighth inning setup guy. For Texas, I still think they're looking for that finishing guy as well. You're saying they sit tight until they sit closer to the deadline? Oh, or for the Padres? Okay. I hear you, Graham. All right. Let's go ahead and look at this three-team trade here. Texas, this would give them their first base option in Luis Arraez. They basically unclutter their roster here with Ezekiel Duran, who I think doesn't really fit on this roster right now. I think he'd be the odd guy out. I think they would possibly move on from Justin Foscue in another trade, possibly for another starter. But this gives the Rangers two bona fide back of the bullpen guys for them. They get Jason Adam, who I think is a great bullpen option, on a very cheap contract. Luis Arraez, 1 year left. I think there's a good chance that the Rangers could agree to a deal, whereas the Padres are a little bit more limited financially, where they might not be willing to go as high as, say, the Rangers would. And then, of course, Suarez gives you the proven closer option. For the Padres, you get two guys to immediately go onto your big league club. Actually, three guys, really. Two guys to go into your everyday lineup. Duran would probably go into the infield mix. Tavares probably takes some time out there in the outfield, kind of your fourth outfielder type of a player. Gives them some really good defensive versatility out there. They get a good young relief arm in Uribe and a starting pitcher to hope on in Mitch Bratt. For the Brewers, essentially they're getting another starting pitcher, which is still their weakest position, is that starting pitching, and a good shortstop option to kind of hope on there as well. The Brewers love their position player prospects, and with the addition of John Gray, I think they'd have a good chance of extending him as well. So not just buying for 2025 here with this trade here for a bunch of these teams here. It's about building for the future, long-term contracts here for the Padres. Brewers get a guy that they look like they might be able to extend on a contract there. And the Texas Rangers might be able to get a deal done with Luis Arraez, and they solidify their bullpen for at least a year, maybe two as well. Detroit 71-29 at halftime. Yikes, that's a pretty rough game. Rowdy Tellez would be a cheaper DH option for the Jays with some pop. I would agree as well, but I'm not sure they're really worried about cheaper options at DH types of conversations with the Toronto Blue Jays. I think they're looking for still Alex Bregman, and then if they miss on him, that's when they'll cycle through all the rest of the options that are still there before the start of the spring training season here. Who's closing for the Brewers now since Williams is traded? Good question. I'm not really sure who would be that guy. Payamps has had some good appearances there. I'm sure spring training will sort it out a little bit, but Payamps, trying to think of who else even has experience right now with the Brewers that's still there. Nobody springs to mind at the moment, anyway. He has D-Rod. That situation could get really messy very quickly, or it could drag on and on, which also isn't great for the Padres as a team. Yeah, I mean, as far as that ownership issue goes, I think it's more about them solving. I think the court solved that Seidler's going to be the control person right now, but I didn't hear any results as far as the lawsuit. I think that kind of needs to be cleaned up, and then they need to figure out a direction. Whichever owner is going to be in charge, who's going to have the strings financially? Are they willing to spend a little bit more than they did last year, say even $5 to $10 million, just to keep the roster together that they currently have and see what happens next offseason? Try to re-sign Cease, Michael King or Luis Arraez, or they just try to trade one of these guys and just see if they can recoup some prospects in return as well. The Brewers will find someone. They always do. That is true. They're kind of like the Rays in that way with their bullpen. All right, let's head over to X to see if anything else is happening at the moment. Mets are keeping Josh Butto in relief. Talking about broadcasting spring training games. Boone and the company are happy with their third base mix right now. Dodgers finalized the Kike Hernandez signing. Bunch of minor league deals again. There's that Michael Taylor deal, 1 year, $1.95 million to the White Sox with performance bonuses if he gets back to hitting like he did with the Twins at the very end there. There's the France deal. Doesn't look like much else today. Let's head over to MLB trade rumors. And a bunch of nothing there. Alrighty, so I wanted to have this earlier discussion anyway. Hopefully we could kind of change the karma around the signing for Bregman. See if we could entice him to say, hey, Michael's done with his live. Now I can go ahead and get my signing done here. Maybe, just maybe, we'll trick Bregman into doing it. With any luck, we can get that one to go through. Milwaukee has 2 good shortstop prospects. Jesus Mate and Cooper Pratt, plus a young Joey Ortiz, someone getting traded eventually. I would agree, but every team drafts basically center fielders, shortstops, pitchers, and catchers, and then eventually those guys either make it or move off to third base, second base, left field, right field, first base, whatever. Pardon me. That's just generally how it works out, but you can never have too many good minor league shortstops. Will they trade Luis Robert? Possibly. I'm still not sold on a team taking on his contract at this point. Every damn Breggy. All right, Hank. Not me building a dynasty with the Rockies in the show while listening. All right. Appreciate you joining us, Rafe. Graham, I'm really, really surprised that the Mets haven't gone and got what I'd say is an ace, in my honest opinion. The rotation at the moment isn't a playoff one. I'd say they're good enough to get to the playoffs. I don't think it's good enough in the playoffs. Kind of like the Orioles to me. I think they could hang with maybe the Chicago Cubs. They could hang with some of the other wild card teams. But do I think they're better than, say, the Phillies rotation? No, but their lineup is a little bit better. Is the Mets rotation better than the Dodgers? No. Is their lineup better than the Dodgers? No again. So that would be the one area I think they could improve as we get closer to the trade deadline. Do not be surprised if they go after one of these lower cost rental options like a Dylan Cease, Framber Valdez, just guys with 1 year. That's kind of what I'm trying to name here. But if they go the long-term route, say like a Pablo Lopez or a Sandy Alcantara, that price is obviously going to be considerably more expensive. Let's see here. Mark, if both Leiter and Rocker have a very good spring, do you think Texas might try to trade Gray or Molly for bullpen help? I don't think both of them, Rocker and Leiter, start the season in the minors. One, not both. Let's kind of start with your first premise there about Rocker and Leiter both having a good spring training. If they both have really good spring trainings, I think there's a good chance both of them start the club with the Rangers and start in that rotation. I think there'd be a chance that Bradford could be moved to the bullpen, although I think he performs best in that rotation. But there's no way you're going to be able to move on from Tyler Mahle. There's no way he has any trade value right now. It's a pure, hey, hope and a prayer lottery ticket for a team. You have to show he's healthy first before you can trade him. Now, John Gray, he at least showed you some innings last year. You could try to move him. Might be at a diminished return, but you might be able to move him a lot easier than you would Mahle. But do I think they would make an automatic trade if they had a good spring out of those two guys? Probably not. I think they'd still want the innings out of those starting pitchers there. The second point that you made there, would the one of them start in the minor leagues? Well, the current thought process from from the Rangers media is that Leiter could start the season in the minors, and if there's an injury with DeGrom or somebody like that, then immediately you take his spot in the rotation and piggyback Dane Dunning with his start, or if, say, Nathan Eovaldi goes down, so forth and so on down the line. But I think Kumar Rocker is a lock for this rotation right now. I think Leiter's the one that's going to have a tougher time securing his spot. I think it's going to be Bradford that's going to have the inside edge on that starting rotation spot. If he has a good enough spring, I think he'll get that spot, even if Leiter has a great spring. King or Castillo might end up with the Mets. Or Cease, King, or Castillo. I think Castillo's going to stay with the Mariners. I think that's their thought process there, is they want to keep this rotation together as long as possible and hope for the best offensively. Understandably, they still have some big holes in that offense, but they're counting on that rotation being good enough to weather the storm. Robert Jr. is hot, but it depends which Robert Jr. turns up. That's true. Health, is a big thing for me for him, and I just think the price tag on him, I would try to steer clear if I was a team interested in him. I'd rather go the cheap outfield options like Leody Tavares or even the free agent market and Alex Verdugo. Even understanding Robert has certainly higher highs still in him, but I wonder about the injury issues with him and the contract, poor performance at times. All those are issues for me. Lock smart. In your opinion, will the Jays make the playoffs with their current roster? No. I think they're currently going to finish 5th in that AL East. Graham, I see what you're saying, D-Rod. Just had a moment in the 3rd division, depending on what the Cubs and Brewers do, they might not make the wild card. True. Cayman Jack Palomas tonight. I guess you're having a little bit of fun there, Hank. I'm not a drinker, so it took me a minute to register that one. All right. Appreciate you guys joining us this evening. Like I said, I'm hoping to kind of do a little bit of a reverse jinx here, saying, hey, Bregman's going to sign sometime before the 18th, kind of give it a little bit of runway. And instead of doing our live later in the evening, we did ours a little bit earlier today and kind of hoping that we get a Bregman signing and get ready for our spring training shows that, again, will begin on Thursday. We will start with one of the first clubs that's going to begin the year. Not sure if we're going to do the Cubs first because I wonder if Bregman's going to be signed by that point, or if we're going to go a different direction with a different club that's going to start their season a little bit early as well. But the Cubs will be one of the first ones we do here in the next week or so. Dodgers will be as well. So Cubs, Dodgers fans, be sure you join us. And Toronto fans, be sure to join us as well within the first week to make sure you guys catch our updates for you guys on those. So as far as the Blue Jays, if they miss on Bregman, maybe we'll have some other answers as far as, where Vladimir Guerrero Jr. stands as far as his extension. Now that they'd be in spring training by that point, we'll get into all those deals as well. But appreciate you guys joining us. Hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already. And again, we'll be live again later tonight if we get a Bregman deal. If not, we'll probably do a live tomorrow, early on in the day anyway, and then we'll do another one in the evening. Tomorrow I am off, so hopefully we'll have some fun with you guys. Willard, welcome back. Bregman might re-sign with the Astros. Still a possibility. It is still indeed a possibility. D-Rod, Mets could have signed Scherzer and Verlander now for less than half of 3 years ago. They can use the innings. I think they already have, 6 starters? Are any of them an ace for me outside of Kodai Senga when he's healthy? Probably not. I think Manaea is a really good number 2. Or at least could be a really good number 2 by the end of this year. I think he has that in him. I would like to see him continue to prove the steps he took last year to improve are continued this year, that he doesn't just stagnate or regress from what he showed us last year. But I still think they need to add a number 1. All right. Appreciate you guys joining us this evening. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe. With any luck, we'll get a Bregman signing and we'll be back live later this evening. But appreciate you guys joining us. Hit that like, subscribe, follow us on X at UpsideSN and on Facebook at Upside Sports Network. Y'all have a great evening. Stay safe out there, everybody.